takes it comfortably. Steps one, steps two, steps three. He's away! Jared Hayne with a catch and a run. They're not going to catch him. All aboard! Tickets please for the Hayne train.
He's Houdini! He's Houdini! And he's put Gardner over! Daniel Gardner has scored! What about Andrew King? Put him in the circus! Put him somewhere! He's too good for this!
You are now listening to the Molten Fantasy Sports Podcast.
Yes, we are live again. It's Sunday night. Welcome back to the Sunday Roast, where we preview all things NRL Supercoach for round 2, brought to you by Molten Fantasy Sports. I'm your host, Nathan Brain, and I'm joined as always by a very proud Hopgood owner this week, Matty O, Supercoach Mattrix. Mate, how you going?
Yeah, really, really good. I just had the best Friday night of my life. I was on the way to the Broncos game. I'd swerved last minute to captain Jermaine Hopgood, and I was listening to it on the radio, and it sounded like it was glitching. They just kept saying Hopgood, and Hopgood's in another tackle, and Hopgood's involved, and Hopgood's there, and no tries, and I think it was 120, 119, or 124 after updates. It was 119 on the night, and then I got to the Broncos game, and they played tremendous as well, beaten in the local derby. That's great.
Mate, you've had a cracker of a Friday night, haven't you? You've done really well. And that was big balls going Hopgood captain. So full credit to you. I didn't have it in me, but it paid off big time for you.
I left work and like one of the boys gave me a spray. He's just like, you will regret doing this. And I'm like, I was looking at the base and just thinking about the opportunity that he was only 2% captained, and he made a bet with me, which I got up, which really just, he was going to call me a coward if I backed out of it at that point. And yeah, I was right there. How good.
Living the dream, mate. So today's show, as we always do, what we'll do is we'll talk about our pre-update scores. So we'll give you an idea on how we went for the round. We'll talk through all 8 games in a bit of depth as well, based on how we've seen them. We'll go through our Supercoach booms and busts for all 8 games of the round. Bit of Q&A at the end. So guys, if you have any questions, or you're not quite sure on what next week looks like, first of all, let us know how you went last round in round 2 down below in the comments section. It's a bit of a shit show for the most of us, so join the club. And our initial trade thoughts for round 3, which is going to be an interesting one, because I've already I think I've got 2 trades locked and loaded already, and they're 2 pretty interesting ones. So we'll talk about them at the end. Just before we dive into the games, hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the follow, regardless of whether you're watching us on YouTube, whether it's Twitch, whether it's Facebook, whether you're listening on Spotify or Apple or any of the other audible mediums. Make sure you're following us to get all of those future episodes locked in. Unlimited group is on the screen as well below. So if you're watching us on YouTube or Twitch or Facebook, you'll see that group code underneath. If you're listening to us on the Audible platforms, make sure to hop onto YouTube to see that code so you can jump in and go in the running to win that Supercoach ring and an episode at the end of the year where you can chat a little bit of crap with us. Lastly, comment those scores below. Guys, let's move into Thursday's game. Panthers 16 beat the Rabbitohs 10. Pretty close game. Bit scrappy, but there's some positives to take from it from a Supercoach standpoint. Matty, we'll talk about booms and busts, but booms, Stephen Crichton 85, Toto 67, Tass 66, and Garner 60. Plenty of positives to take from that, because I think the 2 relevant ones there are Toto and Garner. Do you have either of those guys in your team at the moment?
I have Brian Toto. To be completely honest, I would trade him out if I had the trade. I tweeted out about it. He just sort of saved us with a try at the end. Much like my boy Katoni Staggs, they just didn't seem to be going that side. He didn't seem to be getting a lot of ball. I think it's going to be a roller coaster owning him, and I expected more, especially with Taylor May out. I expected more.
Is Katoni Staggs a sell for you this week?
Yep.
Yeah. It's hard when you see a guy that it just has so much upside, doesn't he? Like we've seen what he's done in the past over however many weeks, years it's been, where he can get 120, 130 points without really lifting a finger too much, and then you see him get 40s with a try, and you just think, what are you doing? Like,
He
I
would
want to
have got
see him
in the
more
20s
involved.
for this. He would have got in the 20s for the second week in a row if he didn't fall over for that try. And like, it's great. Like, I don't want to sit here and be discounting tries. Like, he scored a try. That's great. To'o scored a try. That's great. They're center wingers. That's what they should be doing. But I just expected more. I swerved, and I think we both need to look at ourselves after all season saying that we're not going to add guys because they're on our teams, and you've added Nofaluma and I've added Stags, and they are our worst mistakes.
100%. I'm 100% with you. We'll talk about the Tigers a little bit later because there's a lot of emotion flowing through my veins at the moment about that game this afternoon.
And we'll talk about the Broncos later, but we could talk about the fact that Garner has probably, for all the guys that have him, he's probably earned his spot in your team for 420K.
Sorry, Matty. I feel like he saved his spot only because people have worse problems in their team. And look, you're going to take 60 every week. Like, I'm more than happy to take a 450, 470K guy. If he gets 60 for me all year, he's going to cost you 600K at the end of the year. And I'm more than happy to take that. But for a guy that, I mean, look, when you look at his stats, 29 tackles, 7 tackle breaks, 1 offload, 10 runs. I mean, you take away the tackle breaks from the poor defense, and he's really scoring your 45, isn't he? Like, there's he didn't
defense,
really,
but they were playing the Rabbitohs.
Yeah, but
if they were playing
pretty
the Tigers,
ordinary, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. But if they were playing the Tigers, I would be agreeing with you. I'd be doing the same. And the Rabbitohs were looking ordinary, but the Panthers have looked ordinary. Like, if they're humming along, I think he can be all right. And I have been somebody that's been really critical of the Garner pick. You just wait a week on him.
Yeah. I'm with you. I don't have Garner. I didn't start with Garner. He's not a guy I'll bring in this week. So if you don't have him, I don't think he's a bring in.
Oh, no.
60 and 40 or whatever it is isn't enough to really kind of bring him into a team. But I guess if you have him, you probably got bigger problems in your lineup at the moment.
I really feel like he's a guy that I'm glad I don't own still. I'm sticking to my guns on that. But he is somebody that if you do own him, you're just not going to move him on. You've got bigger problems. You've probably got Ponga in your team. So,
and speaking of bigger problems, this guy isn't a problem at all. Taruva, he scored 44 in pure base, mate. Like, I'm more than happy with that. If a center wing at 280K or whatever it is that he costs is going to get me 44 in base, 34 points in runs alone. He can sit on my bench and he can do his thing. I'd even happily play him for 45 a week at that price.
Yeah, I'm playing him. I'm really happy I own him. If you don't own him, you should have him in your team. Lock and load, ride the wave. He's on that really, really good side, which we were hoping To'o would be. Which, is probably why we're a bit disappointed. It's hard to say we're disappointed with a 67 or whatever. 67, because that is a really good score. But from watching the game and how little ball he got, he did really well to get 67.
I'm concerned with him on that right side outside Crichton. That's my concern. I've never liked To'o out on the right side. And you think, how does that make sense? Like, you've got Cleary on the right. A lot of ball should go down the right, but it's just they're such a right to left attacking team, the Penrith Panthers, and obviously with Kikau in that squad last year, it's a very big part of their makeup and the way that they run the ball. So concerns for me as well, mate. But let's talk about the busts, and the one that is the pinnacle. And I'll talk about pinnacle of chasing last week points is Lockie Ilias. He scored 19 this week. You were a guy that was spruiking him a little bit through the offseason, and I understand your point as to why you would. But, mate, he's come back down to earth pretty rapidly, hasn't he?
Look, and there was good reason he was 360K. I think he's still somebody you can watch, and playing the Panthers and the Rabbitohs being pretty ordinary on the night, he could probably be a bit forgiven you probably shouldn't have went this early on him. I don't think many people had him to start with. If you add him after last week, you just really weren't listening to the fact that we were saying that we have this free look. You have this free look again, and you've added him? No. So it is what it is. It's sort of what we expected. You would have hoped that maybe it was a 40 and you get that really good price rise. So
yeah, tough, mate. The big question, and we've got Sonny Luke who's got 29, Cleary got 40, Isaac Thompson got 24, Moali 26, Cam Murray 40. So there's some pretty lackluster scores in that lineup there that are pretty popular assets in Supercoach. The big question this week: do you sell Nathan Cleary knowing that he's looking at a close to 200 break even? Panthers have the bye this week. Is that a genuine option you're looking at the moment, is moving Cleary on?
If you asked me this time yesterday, I would have said yes. I'm going to trade Cleary. Sam Walker looked really good. I saw some options that I could really get around, but I have worse problems now than Nathan Cleary. If you asked either of us at the start of the year, we'd say, mate, we've had 2 bad games with Cleary. Let's not do it. But you just start to think, I didn't make any trades last week. Let's use one and save the cash. If he drops 100K, if he drops 200K, if his form stays ordinary, because Nathan Cleary will bounce back, and you only lose money. Like, his price doesn't matter. You only lose money when you trade him out.
Yeah, that's right. I think people forget that you can hold a player all year and they can go from 800 to 400 back up to 800. And at the end of the day, if you hold them in your team the whole time, you don't lose cash. So guys like Cleary, guys like Tedesco, guys like those high-end quality players, Harry Grants, etc., we know that Harry Grant's going to drop cash through the origin period. Now, you've got to make a tactical decision whether you drop Harry Grant, whether you drop Nathan Cleary, whether you drop Tedesco. And at the end of the day, if you let that price rise hit and then you sell them for a less amount, yes, you lose cash. So if you hold them the whole year, you don't lose any money at all. And I think people forget that. People panic when they see this really high break even and they go, probably should move on Nathan Cleary. He's got a 200 break even. You only lose that cash if you trade. So yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I think I might have a little bit more luxury than you do this week, but
yeah.
We will see. We'll talk about our trades at the end and what our thoughts are there. But plenty of questions to be asked there, mate. But Michael, go for it.
Can I touch on a couple cheapies from the Bunnies? Shaq Mitchell, back-to-back 50s in that front row forward spot, bottom dollar. Is he somebody that you're looking at?
If I didn't have Davey Moali and I had Pele or someone like that, and I needed to move from Pele to someone who was going to make me cash, I'd be like, yep, absolutely. Shaq Mitchell is the better option out of Moali and Mitchell, really. Like, when you look at him, Shaq Mitchell's getting the minutes. Everything's happening around Shaq Mitchell. So the way we saw Davey Moali playing out is exactly what Shaq Mitchell's actually getting in this squad, which is disappointing for super coaches. But yeah, for me, I'm not going sideways from Moali to Mitchell. I don't think it's even worth it in that front row sport. I think at the end of the day, you're going to have to look at guys like Davey Moali is really slow burns. It's not really worth using a trade at this point just to go from a guy that's 234K to 260K just to make an extra 40 to 60K, because we need to remember that this isn't always going to happen consistently week on week either. Shaq Mitchell could easily come out and go two sub-20s and go back to a 20-minute bench roll. And then you've just wasted a trade for basically 40K that you're going to lose in the next week. So it is a risky trade period at the moment, but I know that we're obviously looking for value right now. But yeah, if you started with Shaq Mitchell, great. Or if you got Franklin Pele, I'd go to Mitchell. But otherwise, I'd probably stay strong at the moment with Moali or somebody like that.
I agree with you. Touching on some of these other cheapies, Moali 26. You can't be disappointed when you have a bottom dollar guy that's playing. And yeah, you're definitely right. It is going to be that slow burn. Michael Cheekham, 52, second row forward, center wing. He has been playing 80 minutes the last 2 weeks.
I said on the podcast last week, I said, Cheekham is a serious option for me. I was actually considering going from To'o to Cheekham this week to free up a bit of cash so I could make some big moves this week. I didn't do it. And I'm still glad I didn't do it. I'm not upset about the fact that I didn't go and not waste a trade, but go and use a trade on a guy like Cheekham, because obviously we need to remember Jed Cartwright's on that bench. He can easily slot onto the edge, so we don't know what that was going to look like. It was a bit of a risky play trying to guess what they were going to do with that rotation, just with all of the forwards out and everything going on over at South. So does he go 80 minutes again is the question, because we need to obviously see what Team List Tuesday brings, right?
Yeah, I believe Jacob Host is close to coming back.
I would see Jacob Host probably slotting back into the middle and then maybe someone shifting to an edge. We know Jai Arrow's out too.
I just wonder if he's pushing his, if you start renovating that bench, then it could just mean some minutes for Cheekham. Just implications of another guy coming back in.
And Cheekham's not a guy, as a coach, you would want starting 80 minutes on an edge, is he, in your team? I mean, let's be honest, Cheekham, good quality player in his own right, but he's a 14 at best.
You mean as a coach, not as a super coach? Because as a super coach, I want him 80 minutes on the bench. I want him 80 minutes out there.
Yeah, mate. As soon as you find a player that's got 80 minutes on the bench, you let me know, because I'm all for it. Sonny Luke. Popular downgrade option for Brandon Smith. Everybody was talking about the fact they were going to bring Sonny Luke in this week, round 3 for the cash grab, because he got 57 in 25 minutes or whatever it was in round 1. And then he's gone and got us, 29 in 47 minutes in round 2, which is really disappointing. That's kind of ruined my plans, because he would have been a great downgrade option for Brandon Smith, who we'll talk about soon.
I'm disappointed, and I was having a little bit of a look at him. It's just a wait and see. You don't have to go super early right now. You can just sit there, watch what happens. If he takes a bit more of a roll off Mitch Kenny, he's definitely a play.
Yeah, Brandon Smith, honestly, I can see him missing time. And if he doesn't miss time, he'll be playing a little bit hampered. He'll be playing a little bit unfit. He won't be 100%. And we know that rib injuries linger over time, probably even 2, 4, 6 weeks. We saw what happened to Joseph Tarpany last year with his rib injury. We know rib cartilage injuries are brutal in terms of contact sport, so we need to consider that. And we know Brandon Smith doesn't take a step back, does he? He's going to go in there and he's going to have a crack. So he could easily re-injure that rib or the back, whatever it is that he's got going on. So he's on the sell list for me this week, and I'd probably recommend that everybody looks at either a downgrade or an upgrade option around him as well.
I'm not sure Sonny Luke is the answer. I'm hoping that I would have the cash to go an upgrade, holding on to some guys that you have a little bit more expensive. I do classically like to spend up in hooker. It's a really consistent position. But let's have a look. The solution for me isn't Sonny Luke for the cheese issue.
Yeah, not at the moment, unfortunately. If he banged out another 60 in 50 minutes, yes, absolutely, I'd be in. It seems like Mitch Kenny's taking a lot of minutes there at Penrith at the moment, early on in the season. I know that'll change. I think that will change moving forward, but we just need to wait and see and see a bit of consistency with minutes there. Steve scratched his way to 1,000. Pretty solid effort considering I missed 1,000 this week.
Fantastic.
Yeah, he's done well there. And Justin's asking me if I've only got any West Tigers jerseys left, and I do not. Steve also says Carraz, Reece Walsh, and Reed Marnie are some guys that he's looking at to bring in this week. And we'll cover all 3 of those guys. I know you're very excited to talk about Reece Walsh, Matty, so we'll leave that one to you.
I've got goosebumps.
But, mate, let's move on to the Friday night 6 p.m. game. Eels 26, lost to the Sharks 30. And I don't know whether there was a set of defense played in this whole game. It was brutal to watch. There was just points galore, wasn't there?
Yeah, it just kept going back and forth. I got to watch the replay on Saturday morning. It was obviously quiet at work. And it just seemed to just keep going back and forth. And they were scoring from the 40-meter line, from the 50-meter line. There wasn't a lot of defense apart from your boy, Jermaine Hopgood. I actually don't know how the Eels lost this.
Talk to us about your boy, Hopgood. because it's hashtag Hop God now. 124. Did it on his dick, really, didn't he?
He did. No try either. It was fantastic. I just sit there and watched him, and he was just involved in everything. He was just the catalyst behind so much. He was the first up tackling, and I know he's a 298k. I don't think I've ever captained a guy that's sub 300k, but if you don't have Hopgood, you have to. It is a must-have. Delete the app if you're thinking about not having Hopgood, because we are going to get the fantastic price rises. He's just turned up twice in a row and he's 298k.
Do you remember the last time that you would have saw a guy sub 300k get 124 in round 2 and be a genuine captain option? Because I mean, let's take maybe a step back 10, 15 years. I probably still don't even remember a guy that you could confidently captain each week from round 2 in his probably what would you call this his full rookie year? Because he didn't play a ton of games last year for Penrith.
No, I would nearly call him his rookie year. Some of the guys that said that they didn't have Hopgood probably didn't. They were big football fans, but they weren't sort of following the Supercoach podcasts and that. They were saying they just didn't really know who he was, and they rectified the mistake of not having him in round 2, and they were rewarded. So,
mate. Troy Vickers ripping India saying that he said nice captain's choice, but he can't believe he didn't break 1,000.
I can't believe I didn't break 1,000, but I saw the writing on the wall when Ponga went down, and yeah, it's disappointing. I had such a good first 3 days when it come to footy, and today was a bit of a downer. Brought me back to earth.
It did for everybody, I think. Mate, so Hop God 124. Will Kennedy got 106 with a hat trick. I don't know whether to be excited about that or disappointed. Dylan Brown 105, Nikora 92, Trindle 76, Sevo Moses, Regan Campbell Gillard all 80 plus. So there's a lot of points scored in this game, considering there was 56 points scored in the actual game itself. Now, Brown and Moses, are they back to their best? Do you feel like Brown and Moses, regardless of the Parramatta draw, are options moving forward?
Not yet. They still have a pretty ordinary draw. We expected the Sharks to have Nico and therefore be a bit better. Not that the defense is a big play in that, but maybe there would have been a bit more possession and that for the Sharks. I think this was just a shootout, and all your high upside attacking players did really well this game. This is going to be a little bit of an anomaly. You know what? It just makes up for their absolute stinker the week before, Supercoach wise. You're just back to square one, and it'd just be like making a decision in the off season right now. If you are looking to move to them, I would look towards a price rise from somebody else.
Remember when I said last week in Team List Tuesday that Moses lost his first, his 50th, his 100th, his 150th? He lost his 200th. So, mate, I'm big on superstition and statistics like that, and it looks like he didn't deliver. So the trend continues for Mitchy Moses. 250th, keep an eye out for that and just back the other team.
Yes. I do know you want to talk about the Cardi party.
I do because I didn't take him and I'm pissed off about it. I'm actually really frustrated that I took Matty Dory over Bryce Cartwright. And look, don't get me wrong. They've both been okay. When we look at what Matty Dory's been able to do, I think he got 41 this week, which isn't terrible at 234k. Yeah, that's right. And look, at the end of the day, I'd be pissed off if he got less than 30 or something. But like, he's getting me 41. I think he got 37 last week or 38. There's much worse options and bigger problems in my team right now than a guy that's 234k getting me 40. So, but yeah, Cartwright's been fantastic, hasn't he? He's been, 59 and 58, I think, the last 2 weeks. So he's going to be a good little cash grab for people. But I would caution people to pick him up this week, knowing how close Ryan Madison is to returning for the Parramatta Eels, and obviously how we don't know what's going on with Sean Lane either. They're keeping their cards pretty close to their chest there, so definitely not a bring in this week. 4? Yes, so he misses the first 3 weeks.
Games. Yep.
Yeah, so he's back round 4 for sure. We don't know whether he slots onto an edge yet or whether he plays through the middle or whatever happens, but I can guarantee you he won't be starting in the 13 jersey, Matty. He'll be either coming off the bench playing through the middle or he'll be playing on an edge.
Yeah, and you have him on the edge, and then you've got Sean Lane coming back. I wonder if they just leave Cartwright there until Lane's back. They work Matto back in off the bench. You'd be pretty off him if, I've said it before, you'd be pretty off him if you were a teammate. You'd be pretty off him if you were the coaching staff, and he just basically said that he didn't want to play the first 3 games of the season. I think he'll come off the bench.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm with you on that one, mate. But last one on the booms is Tricky Trindle. He got 76. Now, if Nico Hines got you 76, you'd be upset. But if Braden Trindle got you 76, you'd be pretty stoked if you had him in your squad. But he's
You're
not.
going to get a price rise.
He's not a cash grab for you now, though, is he? Surely.
No. And I see Troy asking it in the comments. I'm not looking at Trindle. You've know my opinion of him anyway. This was a shootout, and he was the halfback for the Sharks in a team that put 30 on. And last week he was on 40 after like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then he finished on 45. I would be, if I'm looking for somebody that I can genuinely play, which I am, I'm not looking at Trindle.
Yeah, I mean, look, Steve's asking whether there's a chance that when Hines comes back, Trindle goes into 5'8", considering Moylan's been a little bit lackluster, but I don't see them dropping Moylan. That's a pretty stiff ask, isn't it? Like, Trindle's basically a placeholder until Nico Hines comes back, and I don't think he's an option if you didn't start with him. If you took the risk and you started with him, great. You'll probably get 2 price rises, but Nico Hines is due back in round 4, I think, round 5 at absolute worst. So, I mean, there is a risk, and people are talking about the fact maybe he comes back after their bye. But there's so much up in the air about that, and nobody knows. They're not really being transparent about Nico's injury and when he's coming back and what their plan is behind that. So,
see, the guy that they're talking about is his day-to-day, week-to-week.
I saw that. May as well put in month to month just to be sure.
That is not an update. I'm sorry.
No.
They're
taking
running.
the piss. They're taking the piss, aren't they? Yeah, it's not. No. So Trindle's no go. I'm happy to wait until Nico Hines. Whatever happens there, there's some good options in halfback that we'll talk about soon as well.
Yep.
But I don't think that's an option.
There's a couple guys that come back down to earth with this game too. Teague Wilton, 51. You're not going to be super unhappy with it. And Josh Hodgson, 35. Those people that went early on Hodgson probably didn't watch the game. I thought he looked pretty ordinary in the first game, and I was amazed when I saw that he'd scored 60.
Stunk it up, didn't he?
Yeah. And Teague with 51, I probably just expected that the way that this was a massive shootout that maybe he would have got over for a try.
Yeah, Teague was a little bit underwhelming, but in saying that, it's 51 from a guy that cost 490K. Like, we've got bigger problems. He's priced at that. He's priced less than that. So I'll take that. I've got bigger problems in my squad than worrying about Teague Wilton's 51. So that's not a concern for me. But I tell you what, for the people looking at Hodgson, or the people that jumped in on Hodgson last week, he got 41 tackles last game and scored 35. So 1 try contribution as well. So there's 45 points right there. He had 1 error and 6 missed tackles in that game, and that's it. Not 1 attacking stat in this whole game. So his job right now from Brad Arthur is to say, you pick the ball up off the deck and you get it in Mitchell Moses or Dylan Brown's hands. And that is all you do. I don't want you doing anything else. You tackle and you pass the ball. Thanks. And I don't want a player like that in my squad. So not super coach friendly. Mate, Sione Katoa got 21 in that game as well after his 60 last week. Let me tell you who stunk the place up. I could smell him from Campbelltown. Was Bailey Simonson. Now, he got 33, but if you watch the game and you watch the actual game and you watch the NRL and you understand the NRL, Bailey Simonson had probably one of the worst games I've ever seen. I think there was 4 errors. He couldn't actually catch a ball. He ended up in front of Mitchell Moses when he was trying to get pass out. Like it was just a shocker. And you can tell Bailey Simonson's been out of the game for a bit. He's coming back from an injury. He's obviously been training in the non-contact squad in preseason for a while. But God, man, he's going to be lucky to keep his spot when you've got guys that are banging down the door on the wing at Parramatta this season.
That's what I thought. I I think they'll give him a bit of a leeway because he is coming back from an injury, but he looked super ordinary. The Eels just lost again. I'd be worried. I'd be worried if I was him after that performance.
Big time. Hayes Dunster, we know he's not far away and they like him over there. So, Simon's going to have to pick up his game, I think. But, mate, Friday, 8 p.m. Your boys, the Broncos 28 beat the Cowboys 16. What a good game that was. That was a banger of a game to watch. And obviously the Cowboys just didn't turn up for this one, but the Broncos absolutely did. And I'll tell you who did turn up for this game. Reece Walsh, 105 points. How good was he?
Genuinely, every time he touched the ball, the stadium gasped. It was
completely
it was
get
magical.
that.
It's the best club debut I've ever seen.
He was quality, wasn't he? Just in everything. Just wanted to be in everything. And then he ended up scoring a try and looking like Superman and then he cramped up in the calf at the end there. Mate, is Reece Walsh a genuine downgrade option for Tedesco? Because I'd argue that he probably is.
Yes, he is. I
tell you what, I'm very tempted.
I think he can keep doing this.
Oh, no doubt. I have no doubt that he can keep doing that. I think the one kind of bummer is that he doesn't have the goal kicking this year. But I mean, look, hey, do we trust Adam Reynolds to play full season? Do we trust Adam Reynolds to either tweak a groin or whatever it is that he's got going on at the moment? Because we know he's carrying that injury. We know Walsh is the second choice kicker in that team. So that'd be a great little top off. I mean, we don't even really need him to kick. But if he did, mate, he's almost a must have at this point.
It's super hard. You would have remembered, that's what she said. You would have remembered me talking about the Broncos podcasts and saying that Reece Walsh was one of my first added, and then him being out for round one, I just locked in Tedesco, I locked in Turbo, and I was like set and forget. But this is very tempting. I do think Tedesco to Walsh is a luxury trade at this point, though. I think you've probably got bigger issues in your team, unless you're Steve and you're over 1,000 this week. I think you've got bigger issues than Tedesco. Tedesco looked really good, and we're going to touch on that later. But you've got bigger issues. Reece Walsh isn't going to get 105 every week, but there's a lot of upside there for 540.
He could get 70 every week. And
he could get 70 every week. He could get 70 plus.
Teddy isn't. So, for sure, mate. Ezra Mam is a guy that has been nearly getting 70 every week. He's not suffering from second-year syndrome at all, is he? He's involved.
He was involved in everything too. He's very, very quick. Had that other try disallowed, and we're talking about a ton for him. Otherwise, if you've got him, you're really happy, and was a genuine downgrade option for Munster. Maybe if you've got Brown or someone, I'd be really happy with that sideways across to Mam, save a little bit of money. All the Broncos looked really good, really. Like Farnworth looked good. Haas just does what Haas does. All those other, Paddy Carrigan again with a 63. Yeah, they just look really, really good.
They look solid like they did last year. So let's hope they can continue that form this year. Mate, a guy that we were not a fan of in the preseason was Jeremiah Nanai. He scored 30 in the first game. And this time he scored 2 tries and scored 74. So if you take those 2 tries out this week, he scores 30 again. And that's what you're going to get with Nanai. You're relying on this guy falling on the ball in the in-goal off a kick. And then, he's got 1 line break and he's got 2 tries. So look, 74 with 2 tries is pretty disappointing, really, personally, for me. I'm not a fan of picking up a guy that needs to get 2 tries to get plus 70.
The last 2 games I've watched Jeremiah Nanai play live, he scored 5 tries, though.
So you need to stop going to Nanai games. That's what we've deduced. Unless you're going to pick him up. If you pick him up, you let me know, and then I'll get him in my team for sure.
No, and he doesn't look that good when he doesn't have it. He did just bust over, and at least he got the line break on that one. But there's not too much really to talk about with the Cowboys apart from the fact that Nanai scored 2 tries. They looked really ordinary. They started really well. They've started really well both weeks in a row. And the coach has got to look at, is it fitness? I'm not sure, but they went to water 2 weeks in a row. And I know that they won in Canberra, but they were up like 18-0. Cotter's a workhorse. I'm not super worried about Val Holmes. They played against the team that was the best on the night. The Broncos were right up there at the top of the table. I'm a bit concerned about Reece Robson with 45, though.
Yeah, I mean, look, he had no attacking stats either, so that's 44 or 45 in base, like pure base, like all tackles really. Like he didn't do anything with the ball. So I'm not overly concerned. If I was a Robson owner, I'd hold him. I'd probably got bigger problems, but I mean, 44, he'll probably go and get 60 next week, and then you don't need to think about him for a couple of weeks. So I wouldn't be overly worried. I'll tell you the bloke I'm very worried about is Scotty Drinkbolter. He's facing 3 to 4 weeks on the sidelines, Matty, and mate, that could mean good things for Val Holmes owners. Could be moving to fullback for the next month.
If I didn't have Val, I would be looking to add him. Peter Hiku obviously is not the answer. That was awful. Dropped too cold. It was wet.
But I mean, sorry, you're a professional footballer. Like, yeah. And also, have you caught a footy ball before? You caught a Steeden? Like, yeah. Sorry, they're pretty grippy. Like, let's be honest. So, Hiku almost looked like a liability out there at fullback. It looked like the team was probably 10 times worse with him at fullback. And honestly, I'd be questioning whether he comes in or stays and keeps his spot in the next month based on what that looked like the other day. So plenty of concerns. I'm not even sure why Todd Payton's putting him at fullback when you've got Val Holmes, who's very capable of going straight back into fullback.
I honestly can't work it out. It happened there, and we're watching, and we're like, that's Hiku playing fullback. They have Val Holmes.
It makes no sense. No sense at all. But again, I mean, we saw what he did with Taumalolo last year, and that didn't make much sense either. So, I mean, let's just see what happens next. You never know. Val Holmes might move into the front row. And we'll play some more guessing games.
At least the silver lining for Scott Drink Ginger Ale owners are that it didn't affect his price this week. So you have a free out. Congratulations. See him in 5 weeks when he comes back from his suspension after toweling up Corey Oates out there.
That was brutal, wasn't it, poor Corey Oates?
I don't know how that wasn't a penalty try.
Yeah, jumped into him, didn't he? And just clocked him in the shoulder. Clocked him in the jaw, broken jaw, displacement fracture as well, which is brutal. That's like, so when your jaw breaks on one side of the jaw and then the other side. So like you've actually got a complete floating bone in the jaw, which is, that's brutal. Poor Corey Oates out for 8 weeks. So
he's one of the toughest blokes you'll see out there as well. And he stayed down.
You could tell that he wanted to stay out there too. He wasn't exactly thrilled about coming off. So yeah, tough, real tough. But again, who comes into the side now, Matty, on the wing there for him?
Jesse Arthurs, and he looked fantastic as soon as he was out there.
Yeah. It's is he an option? Is he somebody you're going to look at? Because I saw you put on Twitter. Are we thinking about him?
I probably have bigger issues, but it would be a luxury trade to downgrade to Jesse Arthurs. I think he's 340K. He got 40 in 30 minutes off. Yeah, he looked really good. He looks like he'll slot right back in. He will get a price rise straight away because he played round 1 due to the Reece Walsh injury. I don't hate it.
Yeah, for sure. Mate, let's move on. Roosters versus the Warriors. Roosters beat the Warriors 20-12. I'll tell you what, it wasn't convincing in the slightest. The Booms are Jackson Bolo, 91. Sam Walker, 92. Wade Egan, 88. I'm going to leave this next one for last. Suali'i, 81. Adam Fanua-Blake, 79. Tohu, 72. And where's the drum roll? We need a drum roll here. Murata Niokore, 82 points. How good was it to see Murata Niokore let loose and just get involved? And this is the perfect example of why you let your guys run around another week and you don't react to round 1. He was top shelf.
A lot of people were trading him out too. And that's what we were stressing. Let's just have another look. If he gets another 30, he would have been on the chopping block for me this week too. Jackson Ford went down, and we probably just didn't get the best look. And Curran's out as well. We probably just didn't get the best look at the minutes rotation. But hey, we're gonna be riding the Niokore. He's 419k, and he just banged you out an 82. Congratulations if you had him.
For sure. So we've done pretty well, mate. We're riding the Niokore train, so I'm more than happy to take him into the sunset. Mate, Sammy Walker is the guy that everyone will be talking about after this round. He scored 92, and Cleary flopped with 40. So is Sam Walker the perfect Cleary swap with the Penrith bye coming up in round 3?
If somebody asked me at the wedding I was at yesterday, and I said I was going to do it, that was until Ponga's out, and I've been forced another trade. I really liked the move. Sam Walker was humming along. Like you said, the Roosters didn't look that good. I got to watch it on replay today, and Sam Walker was the catalyst. I tell you what, don't you just... That play with Joseph Suolihi and Tedesco on the inside is probably the worst thing I've seen on a football field since Corey Oates' jaw. So it was a day. But it was the worst attitude about anything. And Sam Walker has got up, and I just love that kid now.
Mate, I'm so glad Sam Walker's in my team. I'm going to hold him all year just for the reaction. After scoring a try, I've never seen somebody drop a C-bomb on his own player after scoring a try off a try assist.
Oh, yeah. It was see you next Tuesday.
He wasn't stoked, was he? And look, rightly so, because there's big concerns there. I'm not sure what's going on in the relationship between Suoli'i and Tedesco, or whether there's anything there. I don't want to create a media beat up or anything like that, but when you're not passing to your wide open fullback under the posts on a break,
could be the best player in the game too.
Probably
could be the best player in the game. Yeah,
I'm going to call him the best fullback in the game. And you're not passing to him under the post, mate. That is a big drama. So that's a big problem. And I know that Tedesco owners would have been pulling their hair out. And I was feeling pretty good about that until Dewey did nothing this afternoon. So that was a shame. But yeah, big problems there for the Roosters. They didn't look good at all, and there seems to be cohesion issues there in Sydney.
Yeah. Are you concerned as a Tedesco owner? I know you just talked about Reece Walsh and maybe a downgrade option.
Look, that's a luxury option. You've said it a fair bit tonight. It's a luxury trade for me if I'm trading out Teddy. Honestly, I would probably look to trade out Cleary before I would trade out Teddy this week, only because Cleary has the bye. I've got 900k sitting on my bench. I'm not a huge fan of that. Rather than, and then look, Teddy next week. If he flops next week and drops a bit of coin, I might trade him out then. But I'm going to back Teddy, one of the most proven players in our game, to go and find some form somehow. Because if for anybody who watched this game, if you're looking at the stats, you probably think Teddy 59 is a bit underwhelming. But if you watch the game, he could have scored 130. So he had 2 tries pretty much burgled from him. You know, the Suoli'i one was one of them, but then he also basically dropped one cold off Sam Walker. So he could have had 2 tries, add 34 points to that, plus a couple of line breaks he would have had too. So there's 50, 60 points just off 2 plays. He could have easily had 110, 120 without doing anything. So yeah, I'm not overly concerned.
Then people are adding him instead of talking about trading him out.
Spot on.
If you have Cleary, and you touched on it real quickly, if you had Cleary and Tedesco this week, at least Tedesco's playing next week.
That's true. That's my thinking. Is that, you know, Cleary's not playing next week, 900 grand on the bench. Teddy is. So I'm not overly worried. In saying that, Teddy's versus Souths. So, you know, that there is merit there to go with both. And look, if you've got the luxury where you don't have any other problems in your squad at the moment, you could easily trade Cleary and Teddy this week. You could go Teddy down to Reece Walsh, and you could go Cleary down to Sam Walker. And, mate, you'd free up probably 600k there.
You could turn Cheese into Harry Grant with that as well.
And the rest. Yep. There's plenty you could do with that cash. So, yeah, I'd be all for that. Mate, the last thing I want to talk about with the booms here is Wade Egan had an absolute banger. He scored 88 points, and he scored 99 the week before this. So is Wade Egan the guy that you just go, yep, you know what? Brandon Smith going to lose a ton of cash next week, could even be out next week. Probably a good chance he is. Is Wade Egan the nice little sideways trade here to make yourself 100k?
I don't hate it. I was talking to you off camera about it, and having a look, like the Warriors played, the Knights, I consider them a subpar team, and scored 99. I wasn't overreacting, but he scored 89 against the Roosters.
Pretty solid. 40 odd tackles. He scored a try, obviously, in the last 2 weeks straight. So he's not going to do that every round, but he's looked pretty good. He's been in the thick of it. He hasn't even played 80, and that doesn't matter clearly, does it? So
No.
he's a pretty good option at the moment. If you're not going up to Harry Grant, I'd say Wade Egan is the guy that you're going to go sideways to for Cheese, because Sonny Luke would be the main target there, but unfortunately he just didn't get the minutes we were looking for this round.
Tell me about Tohu Harris.
Mate, if I didn't have any other problems going on in my squad, I would probably even consider going Ruben Cotter up to Tohu. Seems a little bit sideways at the moment, but Tohu's getting 80 minutes in the middle at lock, and Ruben Cotter's getting about 49 to 52 minutes at the Cowboys. And yes, the draw's great. We always know about the draw for the Cowboys, but in saying that, like, if you're spreading the ball left to right and you're playing a lot laterally, which the Cowboys are, obviously, because they know that they're playing against weaker squads, how much work is Ruben Cotter going to get through? 1 point per minute. That's all well and good, but where are the attacking stats? We're not seeing them at the moment. So
they did play the Mighty
great.
Broncos this week, so you've got to cut him some slack there.
You've got to adjust for that, do you? You've got to play the Broncos. You just take 20 off their score.
I think you can have a look at Harris because he played against the Knights, and what he banged out 90. Played against a really good team, banged out 70. Like, it plays an ordinary team, might get close to a ton, plays some of these really good teams, might get 60 or 70. You bank that, especially in a front row forward. But
he's also dual. We need to remember, which creates that flexibility. He's a front row, second row dual. And Cotter isn't. A lot of front rowers aren't. I know Joseph Tarpany is, obviously, but he's scored less points. I reckon, correct me if I'm wrong, probably about 30 points less so far over the first 2 rounds. Mate, Tohu, I said it at the start of the year, he was my smoky this year. And I'm going to call you out here and say that you didn't back me on this one, but
I did.
Mate, is Tohu going to be the guy that goes back to that 70 average kind of player that he was in 2018, 2019? And I'm going to say he is. And based off what we've seen, could be. So the problem is you're not going to really go sideways at the moment because people have other problems on their team. So
I just want to touch on Mitch Barnett before we get into some busts here. Mitch Barnett looks great. Looks like a genuine option as well. I just think we have bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, I mean, Mitch Barnett probably moves to the edge when Jazz Tavanga comes back as well, we need to remember. So he gets a lot of work in the middle. Does he continue to get that work? I don't think he does.
Okay.
Great. He's a watch. He's an absolute watch. Don't get me wrong. And I've had a few conversations on Twitter with a few blokes about the fact that maybe Mitch Barnett stays in the middle when Jazz Tavanga comes back. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm probably predicting that he doesn't. I'm probably predicting that he moves back to the left edge and Jackson Ford shifts back. But we'll see. We'll see how that plays out.
Let's talk about some... Yeah, Jackson Ford's one of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, he couldn't really help it, could he? I mean, Jackson Ford and both Chance Nickel-Klokstad got ruled out with HIA. No true indication there of really what their rotation looks like at the Warriors now, which is a little bit annoying, isn't it? Because I was hoping to see whether Jackson Ford got 80 minutes and how that looked with Curran and all that. But then Curran obviously ended up playing extra minutes and then ended up with a hip injury. So we're still not going to get a good idea next week about what their true rotation looks like. Hopefully Ford then passes HIA. But again, that kind of ruins any sort of price rise opportunity you were looking for from Ford. So
if Curran's out as well, I worried if he did have that injury, which is why he was sort of playing 19 minutes anyway. And that's worrying for Ford and probably Niokore to a certain extent. We always expected him to be that 80-minute guy and look like Ford was going to be. But yeah, we just don't get that second look.
Yeah, Niokore spent 15 minutes off the field with the HIA as well, so we need to keep that in mind as well. 82 in 65 minutes with that nice little line break and the try assist there through the middle, which is great. We know Niokore can do that, so there's no issues there. But does Ford move into the middle? I don't know whether he can. So my question is, like, Ford is essentially exclusively an edge. He's an edge forward. Right, we know that Niokore can play in the middle when he needs to, and we know he can play on an edge. So I'm a little bit less worried about Niokore than I am Ford, which is why I didn't move on Ford last week, and I'm really glad I didn't. So yeah, we'll it's a little bit tricky. But obviously, people that got Jackson Ford this week, perfect example of why you don't jump a week early, which is unfortunate for these people. But well, we've lost somebody. We lost Matty, but we'll push on. Yeah, it's a perfect example of why you don't go a week early for Jackson Ford. And Matty is back.
I feel a bit better about the fact that I didn't start with C&K now.
Yeah, big time. I was a little bit worried about that, to be honest with you. C&K, like, I was so close. I was talking to you throughout the week about how I was going to go Toto down to C&K, and I'm so glad I didn't. And look, it's not his fault, but Jesus. It just shows you how volatile NRL is and NRL Supercoach in general, because you can pick a player up, they look good, and then they end up out of the game with the head injury. So, pretty brutal for him.
Yep. Injuries as well. The cheese. This is going to be the big one, being how owned he is. He now has a rolling 10 in his average.
Yeah, he's almost a see you later for me. Actually, no, he is. I'm going to tell you right now, he's out of my team this week. And the reason for that is the fact that I know that rib injuries linger. And we've seen it a number of occasions last year that rib injuries, they hang around for a while. It's a concern. It hinders performance on the field. And we saw that it was clearly a big issue for him. He tried to come back on the field and got needled up and still couldn't manage it. Whereas a lot of the time we see in these injuries, they can come back. They get needled up and they're back on the field and they have a crack. Whereas Brandon Smith couldn't even get it back on the field, and we know how tough this guy is. So that's a big issue for me. So he's out this week. I'm just trying to work out for me who I go to, whether it's Egan or whether I free up cash elsewhere and just go straight up to Harry Grant.
I really like that. I think Egan was really good. But if you do have to free up some cash elsewhere, then Harry Grant is one that we have talked about, the fact that we would just love to own him. So
big time, mate. Let's move on. Guys, just before we move on into the next lot of games, don't forget to ask us a question. If you have any questions about round 3 or what that looks like, drop them below, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, whatever it is. Drop the comment. We'll see it. We'll pop it up on the screen at the end in the Q&A section, and we will answer them all before we wrap up. And let us know how you went last week. I'm sure you probably knocked us off this week. I was feeling pretty good about my score this week at the start at about 2 or 3 p.m. today. Pretty bloody brutal, to be honest with you, because I was looking at about 1060 and I ended up with, I think it was 970 or something like that, which was tough. No, 984 I finished on. We didn't mention that at the start, Matty. How'd you finish?
I finished just sub 1,000, I think. As even with that start, I got really, really gypped today. I'd Ponga down and... Sorry, it's just loading up. You put me on the spot there.
You're all good. Sorry, mate. I got 984 and I won all 5 of my leagues. So if that gives you any indication of how tough this round was, it seems like 1,000 is probably par score or a bit above par at this point. So anybody not upset or anybody kind of upset with their 1,000 should be pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I got 952, and coming in today, it looked like I was going to tidy up 1,100 fairly convincingly. So,
yeah. Tough, man. Supercoach is brutal. Let's move into Saturday, 5:30. Dolphins beat the Raiders 20-14. How bloody good. Dolphins 2 from 2, leading the group there at the top. Now, there's a few guys to talk about. The booms here. Tommy Gilbert, 80. Hamiso, 79. Joey Tapine, 64. Kotrick, 61. And I put Isaiah Katoa in this list at 46 at basement price. That's the reason why he's there. You'd be bloody stoked with a guy that's cost you 200k basement price to get you a 46 and 5/8, so or half.
Yeah, got a couple of 45s as well. There's going to be a price rise. It's going to be good.
Yep, 100%. Mate, Tommy Gilbert, 60 minutes he played in lock. I think he switched between lock and prop. So regardless, though, he was impressive with the try. Basically, just choke slammed. I think it was who was it that was playing fullback there? It might have been Sebastian Chris. Yeah, playing fullback there, and he just basically choke slammed him and put the ball down in the in goal. So it's quite funny.
He looked really good, and I think he's going to get that sort of 50 to 55 average. So, yeah, if you've got him, you're just super happy that he was able to pull away with a try. And he does. They look great. The Dolphins. They look like a really good footy team. And yeah, I nearly need to make a formal apology to Uncle Wayne after how much we bagged him out in the preseason.
I'm with you.
if I say I still don't really believe that they're the real deal, there's just something that's got me thinking that, there's some tougher times ahead. But hey, you're very happy if you're a Dolphins supporter, and I know
You've
off
just
your
got to
mum,
ride the
so
wave, don't you? You just got to
yeah,
enjoy it, don't you? Like brand new team in the comp. Just enjoy the wins. Enjoy the wins against quality teams, and whatever happens in the future. You're playing better than the Tigers, so
I think Hammer's done enough. I think
I was
Hammer's
about
done
to
enough.
say that he is the center wing cash cow of round 3.
Yep.
He's the only guy that's shown us 2 quality back-to-back performances in a row, and you can automatically guarantee that you will get 2 price rises from this guy, which is essentially what you're looking for in round 3. Because I mean, we've got guys like Chance Nickel-Clockstad who got 70 odd in the first game, and then what did he get in the second? 9 or 10 or whatever it was.
Through no fault of his own.
Not
But
at all.
Hammer's a better option.
For sure. Like I said, he was the one I wanted to bring in aside from Hammer, but Hammer's actually looked in everything. He just wanted to be in everything. He was involved in everything. And look, if the Dolphins end up being a half decent team, he's the guy, isn't he? Like he's the guy that's going to get you 200, 300K. So Hamiso could be the guy that comes into my team, and at the moment he is for me. So we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. But Joey Tapine, 65 in 47 minutes. The guy's just a PPM beast, and we knew this from the start of the season. So you're ahead in the Bolter bet there, aren't you?
I wish Ricky just played him some more minutes.
We know that he starts off slow, though. I said it at the start of the season. I've said it through the preseason. He starts his minutes are always lower to start the season, and he'll work into 55 to 60 minutes in the middle of the season, and we're just going to pick out when the right time is to grab him. And I reckon in the next probably 3 to 4 weeks will be the time to snap him up.
The right time to play this guy some more minutes is when you're getting beaten by the new team in the comp, though.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But it doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like it.
Mark Nichols, again, impressed with a good score.
Yeah, he was solid. I mean, last week we said he's not going to score a try every week. He didn't this week, but he still looked pretty good in terms of work rate, didn't he? I'd probably argue, though, that there's better options at front row forward, so I don't know how long he can keep that up.
Yeah, true. And I definitely think Hammer's a better option than Jermaine Asako, having scored the same over 2 weeks. A bit more consistency with Hammer. I see Asako just ticked over. I think he got updated for an extra 10 points. But hey, if the Dolphins keep humming along, you're going to get a couple good price rises. And if you went early on him, which I think every podcaster or everybody that watches football thought, that's probably too early, but yeah, you're rewarded. You'd be happy. You're probably not happy with 48. If you're adding him after he scored 110, you're probably expecting him to get 100 again. But,
again, you're looking at a 76 average now with the Sarko.
Yeah. So Hammer's got 80 and 79. Hammer's a much better option than Asako.
Yeah, agree with you. Mate, JMK got binned. Jeremy Marshall-King got sent to the sin bin with a hip drop. He'll miss multiple weeks, so he's looking at 2 weeks with a guilty plea. So it'll be interesting to see whether Ray Stone comes back into that lineup to play a little bit of hooker.
He's got to be the next option. I don't really know what happened. Like, he didn't have the best game, but
Ray Stone was
injured.
out
of favour. Yeah, okay, injured.
So we'll see if he's fit for next week.
Like, we'll have to have a look at how much he's suspended. But you could get a price rise out of Ray Stone while he's out. It looked pretty ordinary.
Yeah, it didn't look good, did it? 2 to 3 weeks, I'd say, is what he's looking at, which is a little bit awkward. You're probably only going to get 1 price rise out of him, so
yeah,
not ideal.
Mate, Ricky ruined everybody else from the Raiders, so I was just going to say let's just brush over the Raiders because there's lots of 40s and 50s and middling scores because they get middling minutes. So
yeah, good shout. Corey Harawira-Naira is the only guy that I was going to mention, but he got 73 minutes but still only got sub 50, so not ideal for me. But mate, let's move on to one of the very big talking points of this weekend is the Saturday 7:30 Storm losing to the Bulldogs 26-12. Now, I'll tell you what, this is the biggest surprise of the weekend for me, is to see the Bulldogs go to Amy Park, which is supposedly the fortress for Melbourne, and knock them off by more 13 plus. I wouldn't have picked that if you asked me that last week.
No, you wouldn't. And I thought the same thing as I was checking my score during speeches last night. And we've got to remember that Cam Munster wasn't there.
No, you could tell he was missing, couldn't you? Like,
You could.
Tyron Wishart was ordinary. But again, we're expecting this guy to be Cam Munster. Sorry, he's not. Like,
No.
you're going to see there's going to be a big hole in the Melbourne offense. And we saw that, Jerome Hughes was great. He scored, what was it? Where was it? 91. He scored.
91.
Harry Grant scored 76. Nelson Asofa Solomona 75. Elias Katoa 90. So there's some great things to take from this game, Supercoach wise. But as a Melbourne Storm fan, you've got to be very concerned. I'll tell you what you're not concerned about, though, is Jacob Carraz. 145 he scored with 51 in points, 9 tackle breaks, 3 offloads, 40 points in runs and 2 tries. And he scored 51 in a very, very bad losing team last week. He's almost the form centre wing of the competition this year so far.
Yeah, look tremendous. Some of those tries, they kept going to him as well. Are you looking at him?
Yeah, I am. Unfortunately, because I really don't want to have to pick up a 540k centre wing. I was really looking for that 300 to 370 kind of option. I was hoping one of Hammer or somebody would come into play. And I know Hammer does, but goodness me, can you really avoid a guy that's just scored you 200 points in 2 weeks in a bad team and a lot of base stats?
I had a phone call from a mate, and it was a bit tongue-in-cheek, but he said, how do you do a podcast about Supercoach, and you haven't mentioned his name once? And I was like, well, he was a cheapie last year. He was one of these guys that we were getting to make money, and you sort of forget that they can just keep progressing, like you said with Ezra Mann. It's Ezra Mann. It's not looking like the second year syndrome. We could have some genuine stars in their second year right here.
100% we could. Mate, Carraz is a serious option. I'm even looking at a guy like Nofaluma down to him, or even Toto down to him. There's a couple of really nice options. I might even downgrade 2 centre wings this week. We'll see how that plays out. I honestly don't know, but Carraz and Hammer could be in my team this week for Toto and Nofaluma. So, mate, panic stations in Melbourne, though. Bellyache was not happy at halftime, and it didn't even seem like his halftime rant picked him up because they just got throttled.
If you take your 2 best players out of your team, though, and the Bulldogs obviously had a bit to prove because they were awful week 1, and they pulled it together, you've sort of got to expect to lose some middling games, and that's what we were talking about when we spoke about will Cam Munster get moved back to fullback if they lose a few games, and now they've lost that option as well. I don't really know what they do except get out there and try your best, boys, because their 2 best players are out. Their 2 highest paid players are out too. It's not like you can, it's not like your blokes like Christian Welch and Josh King are going to win you a game. Your blokes that win you games are out. Could be some middling times for the Storm.
Could be. Elias Katoa was good, though. He's a perfect mid-range 2RF option at the moment with the 90.
Disallowed tries too. Like, it could have been more.
He had 3 line breaks in that game. So very promising signs for Katoa. I'll tell you what, also promising signs for Jacob Preston, who started at lock. 76 minutes he played for 83 points with a try. If you don't have him right, is he a really good option for you this week at 200k?
Yep.
Who would you go down to from if you had somebody like, let's say, a bench option 230k or whatever it would be in the 2RF range? Who would you be looking to downgrade to?
If you had Matt Doorey, if you started with Ray Stone, you could probably go down there. Yeah, Willie Army. Yeah, that'd be easy. Do you have Jacob Preston?
I do. I started with him. I made that trade mid-first round, actually. I got really lucky with that one, but I'm very happy with it because he'll have a couple of price rises in him now that he's got that 80 in round 2. So you'll probably see maybe 100, 150k out of Preston in the first 2-3 weeks, which is beautiful. It's exactly what you want.
This was completely random, him starting at lock 2. It was a last-minute change, and yeah, for Happy 200k, days. A bloke that had 80. How good? How good?
Living the dream.
Reed Marnie, 89. Avarillo, 90. I'd be worried if I was Hayes. I'd be worried if I was a fullback because Averillo could shift back there at some stage. What do you
I
think?
mean, Hayes Perham got 67, didn't he? So, I mean, I wouldn't be overly worried. He was okay. He did his job. I feel like they want Averillo in the centres long term when Stephen Crichton comes next year. So I'm not overly concerned or worried about that. But in saying that, yeah, for sure, he's been great. Jacob Averillo's been fantastic. So putting some pressure on, which is exactly what you want from young players in positions like centre. You want them to put pressure on the fullback and the wings. So, mate, the busts, Franklin Pele, 21. If you got Pele, you've got to move him, don't you?
You have to. You
And
have to.
you've
He
got some
did
good
get
options
upgraded.
now.
He did get upgraded to 26 though, and I know it's not a lot, but he's covering the break even. If you have Ponga or somebody that you really need to move this week, you can just wait another week and see if somebody else pops up. But the perfect thing is probably Pele to Shaq Mitchell there in the front row forwards.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
With Pele being only 214k or whatever it is, he's not going to lose much cash. He actually can't really lose any more than he's owned. So I'm not overly concerned. If you've got him now and you held him for another week, I think he's probably the least of your issues. He's probably one of those guys that you just go, yep, you know what? You can just plod on my bench for a little bit. I've got bigger problems. I'll tell you who you don't have bigger problems about, though, is Matty Burton. He got 29 this week. And it was sub 20 last week, I think. Mate, if you got Burton now, you need to bail on him pretty much ASAP. And I actually put in here Dewey and Ponga. But obviously Ponga, probably, depending on how that looks next week, is probably going to miss a week, depending on how concussion protocols go. Didn't look good. But also Dewey then flopped, didn't he? This afternoon, he got 40. I mean, we call Dewey and 40 a flop, but I mean, we're pretty harsh critics. We're expecting a lot more than that. But I mean, are there any other 5'8" options that you would basically go Burton down or up to?
Honestly, I would only be looking to go down, and it's Katoa and Schuster for me. Schuster will be back next week. Katoa, he's rolling out 45s. Probably wouldn't play either of them. I would probably sort of just fade that second spot. But you've got to move Burton this week. You are going to lose a ton of cash on Burton.
Murray Smith on YouTube has said he played Cheese, Ford, Ponga, Boyd, and Captain Dewey this week, and he's also got Nelson Asofa Solomona out. So his season's in tatters after round 2, mate. That's brutal. I've got a feel for you, Muzz. That's no
if
good.
You've got, sorry, Murray, if you have Burton, then you have to keep him after that.
You got bigger problems. Brutal. That is brutal. I tell you what, though, Remus Smith still stinks, doesn't he? I've said it week in, week out.
Still ordinary. Who doesn't, though? With Josh King and Christian Welch, sort of this is what I expected from Josh King and sort of come back to earth. A few people went early on him and he's going to have that 100 in his rolling average, so you're probably still happy with it. Christian Welch, I'm still happy with a 52 at where he's priced it at 46 in a losing team. Will Warbrick, I'm happy at 36 as well. But yeah, I think Wishart with 37, if you went on him, he's been in the league enough for us to sort of know this is what he is.
Paul Alamotti as well is worth mentioning. Everybody probably has him, 48, 20 runs at 190 meters, 90 post-contact meters in 20 runs. That's pretty impressive for a centre. So you hold on to him for another few weeks for sure.
I called him a bottom dollar Talakai at work this week, and he looked like it. He looked better than him. So
you look way better than Talakai, that's for sure. Mate, let's move on to Sunday 4 p.m. And the game I don't want to talk about is the Tigers and the Knights. Now the Knights
are you tearing up? Do you want?
I've got PTSD. I got PTSD from this game. 14-12, the Knights beat the Tigers, and it was. Honestly, we said this before we hopped on live, but this was the worst NRL performance that I've ever seen from an NRL team. And this isn't me just over-exaggerating because you said this. These were your words, not mine. This was
awful.
A shambles. I don't think I've seen a game like this from an NRL professional football team that has been as bad as this. Now, we won't get carried away with how bad the Tigers were, but I think there are some talking points in terms of NRL Supercoach because a lot of people Captain Dewey, or not a lot, probably 6%, I think it was in the end, that Captain Dewey for his 40-odd, I think it was, 43, I think he finished
I
with, and that's
thought-
pre-updates.
I genuinely thought that was a safe option this week.
Me too. And I mean, look, let's face it. The Tigers were the worst team in the comp this week, by far. And a Super League team could have came in and beaten them this week, and Dewey still ended up with 43. So, I mean, we look at how bad Burton was the last 2 weeks. He scored 43 points in 2 weeks. So it's really not that bad. But when you're looking at an 89 from last week from Dewey in a bad team, you probably thought you were going to get 60 or 70. You're probably expecting 60 or 70 from Dewey in a bad team. And then obviously the upside if the Tigers played well, but they didn't. So very disappointing. But I tell you what, there was some plenty of promising signs coming from Stefano Utuikamanu, who got 66 in the front row at 320k or whatever it is that you've got him for. So very happy with that. I actually had the reserve armband on him this week, so I'm not
well
upset
played.
at all. Yeah. 59 minutes as well. Pretty good minutes for Stefano.
Yeah, perfect.
If you didn't play him, do you grab him?
Yep. He did enough. He's a front row forward. He is a guy that you're buying for 300k that has the upside to bang out a 60.
There's no one else relevant for the Tigers here that we're going to talk through, really, that you're going to look at. You're not looking at Luke Brooks. You're not looking at Kapoa. So Dom Young, 91. Gagai, 73. Fitzgibbon, 64. Probably not looking at any of those guys either. But Fitzgibbon just seems to find the try line every single week, doesn't he?
He does. It was his 100th game too. Congratulations to him. But yeah, look, he just keeps finding that try line. He looks good out there. He is a very try-dependent bloke that doesn't really have a fantastic base. He's not someone I'm looking at, but maybe for your drafts or something, if you run or roll the dice, you could add Fitzgibbon. So
I'm sure Fitzgibbon's not on waivers. Can't be, can he? But you never know. The bus from this game, Nofaluma 30, Bradman Best 35, Charlie Staines 32. In saying that, Staines was good when he moved to fullback because they made a switch there where Laurie went to the wing and Staines moved to fullback. So Staines actually looked much more damaging than Dane Laurie. I went and said halfway through the Tigers game that Dane Laurie is the worst fullback in the competition. And I may have said that with a bit of emotion as a Tigers supporter, but Dane Laurie was absolutely incredibly bad tonight.
Yep.
And I'm glad I'm not just watching a different game because it seems like if you're thinking the same thing, he was terrible. Just really bad positioning, terrible defense, just never seemed to get it right on offense either. He wasn't trailing the ball runners in the middle of the field. Did you notice that? The many opportunities where there was an offload in the middle of the field and Dane Laurie was nowhere to be seen. Tedesco would have been all over that.
He was so bad I wouldn't be surprised to see Charlie Staines start fullback. They have just lost against the Knights and the Titans. Put that into perspective. People were talking about the Tigers' draw being good to start, and they're 0-2.
Stinking it up. So, and I took Nofaluma thinking that we had a good draw. Mate, everybody else has a good draw against us. So it's not it's not good.
IPAP 35. That's worrying.
Let me tell you, right? Would you see IPAP getting 35 last year for Parramatta? You wouldn't.
Never.
A bad score for IPAP would have been 50. So it's not good at all, mate. Clemmer 39. When's the last time Clemmer ever scored 39 for a team in Supercoach? There's just a lot of concerns for the Tigers at the moment that they need to sort out. A lot of issues there. Dewey 43. Daniel Saifidi 45. I'd probably call that a bust. You're not really wanting 45s. That's what he's priced at. And Dane Laurie 44 stunk the place up. So I said here the Tigers were awful and not even a reserve grade standard. That's pretty accurate.
We haven't talked about the elephant in the room that Kalen Ponga is very well owned, and I think I have to trade him.
Yeah, I thought I'd leave that one to you, unfortunately, as an owner. Look, if you've got Kalen Ponga, there's very, very big concerns there that he has a few weeks off. Based on the fact that he didn't see out the year last year, this is his fourth ruled out of concussion game in the last 10 months, and the seventh time that he has had an HIA check in the last season and a bit. Honestly, I hope he's okay, because we know how crippling this stuff can be long term. So I really hope he's all right as a human being. As a football player, I know there's going to be concerns there around Kalen, and hopefully he can get back on the field very soon. But if you own him, you've got to trade him.
Yeah, that's like I was getting spicy with like, do I go down with Cleary and do I have the money for Harry Grant and all these exciting trade options? But I've just got to find a replacement for Kalen Ponga this week. And had he got 50, I would have went over 1,000 and had a banger of a week. But it sort of didn't worry the Knights. Jacob Saifidi is one that could be out for longer than Kalen Ponga. That looked really bad.
Wasn't good. That was not good, was it? I'd say he's going to see a few weeks on the sideline, Jacob Saifidi. But it's Jacob. The hooker, Tigers hooker. Who am I missing? What's his name?
I
Simpkin.
don't pay enough attention.
Simpkin.
Yeah, Simpkins. Yes.
Simpkin. He got flattened by that high tackle from Jacob Saifidi. So yeah, no good. Hopefully he's all right too. But mate, not much else positive to take from this Knights and Tigers game. So let's move on to the Sunday game, the one that we got wrong again. The Dragons and the Titans. Mate, the Dragons have knocked off the Titans 32-18 at home. Benny Hunt 85, Ravalawa 83, Laurie 80, Little 73, Sloan 70. Mate, for anybody who took the punt on Tyrell Sloan, you'd be stoked with a 70, wouldn't you? Considering there was a lot of conjecture around how he's going to be any good this year at all.
He looked really good too.
Passed the eye test for sure.
Had a lot of time to practice there. Looked really good. You'd be super, super happy. I'm not looking at him this week, but it could be a genuine option if he bangs out a 55 in base next week.
Yeah, could be a hammer situation where he goes another 70 next week and you're looking at him in around 4 or 5 or whatever it is. I'd be stoked with that.
It is really important that we just have a look at him again for another week, though. There's no real merit in going early. No. When you've got your hammers and when you've got your downgrade options like hammer, of course, you're going to take a safer option there than Tyrell Sloan. Let's have another look. That's what I did with hammer last week, and he impressed me. So, he's going to be in this week. Benny Hunt did what Benny Hunt can do out there. Doesn't always have the most Supercoach friendly game, but when you've got the ball on a string like him, 85 is pretty imminent and could get updates too, I think.
We're talking about the guy that was second in Dally M votes last year. Like he's a good player.
Really good.
So yeah, full credit to him. Quality. I'll tell you who a guy that we got a lot of questions about through the week, Matty, is Tino Faso Maliawi. 108 this week. Everyone was panicking last week about his 40 or whatever it was that he got. And he repaid owners. Anybody who repaid the faith in him, he repaid the faith right back with 108. So that's the perfect example of someone that you're paying for quality and you know that you've got a quality player there. You just hold tight. You know that he's going to get you those hundreds.
Yeah. Yeah. Just looked really good. Looked the leader out on the park. Just disappointing from a Titan standpoint. And maybe we thought that the Tigers were better than they were and that we thought the Titans were better because of that win. But the Dragons looked really good.
Yeah, we were saying this about the Dolphins last week, weren't we? The two teams that we've bashed the most, and they're actually coming first and second this year. So we've really got those right, haven't we?
Yeah, a lot of people would have been making similar choices there. But did you watch the last 37 seconds
of this game? No, I didn't watch the whole game. I went back and watched a real quick replay before we hopped on.
So David Fafita was on 48. There was like 5 seconds to go. He's went and made a tackle bust, ran around, went and kicked it from about 40 out and forced an in goal and finished on early 60s.
How good. That's what you get from a Fafita, though. That's what you get with David Fafita. I keep telling you guys, like, honestly, one player game and he'll get you 50 points. So that's why you own this guy, is because he can be that good. He's got 61 points on his dick doing nothing. So just get Fafita in your team. The busts are Tanner Boyd at 25. And we've got a few questions in the chat here because I wanted to leave this one to last. Tanner Boyd, 25 points. Big concerns around Tanner Boyd. What are you doing with him this week? I know that you've got some other probably bigger issues in your team, but is Tanner Boyd someone you're looking at as a downgrade or a move out of your team?
I really want to get rid of him, but I'm not sure I can. I think if you've got cheese, that's a bigger concern. I think if you've got Ponga, that's a bigger concern. And I am the one person in the world that has Stags as an issue as well.
So let me ask you this. If you have or you don't have those options you just mentioned, and you can move Tanner Boyd, and Tanner Boyd's someone you go, yep, you know what, didn't work out. Who are you going to?
Probably
384k. Wade Egan.
I'm probably
about 100k upgrade.
Yeah. I'm just middling. I'm like, you would love to be able to go to Harry Grant or something, but you'd probably have to. You would obviously have to burn 2 trades. I don't mind the idea because I'm presuming like you could have another issue like Ponga or Burton, and then you're going down to somebody like Katoa and Schuster and freeing up the cash to upgrade Tanner. I don't think there is a sideways move, Tanner being that awkward price. I think you've just got to find the money to upgrade. Those poor people that have Cheese and Tanner at hooker, they're in a world of hurt this week.
Hello, that's me.
You're in a... Oh, that's you. You are in a world of hurt.
Yep, I'm just going to enjoy myself, you know. No, Tanner Boyd's the least of my issues. I'm just going to leave him as a reserve hooker, and I'm going to move Cheese this week. I'm probably going to move him to Wade Egan, but depending on what I can do with the other 2 trades I've got, because I'm considering getting Carraz and I'm also considering getting Hammer, I might be able to have enough cash to go to Harry Grant. So that would be fantastic. That would be the ideal situation. And I tell you what, Reid Marnie hasn't been bad either. So he could be a good option there. If you don't want to go to Harry Grant, he could be a great option at about that mid-price 600, 650.
And it could be that stepping stone. I'm still hoping that Reece Robson is that stepping stone to Harry Grant for me. But Reid Marnie has really impressed in rocks and diamonds conditions too. You know, put on points in a loss, look the best player on the park in the loss, and capitalized on a good win today. So
big time.
Reid Marnie. I think the Whisperer or somebody shouted out that Reid Marnie was going to outscore Robson or someone, and I thought it was ludicrous. But hey, he's looking really good. So
far, so good for him. Mate, Q&A, we've kind of covered the questions as we've gone through, and we're at about hour 20 now. We've been chewing everyone's ear off, so we'll push through. But mate, what are your trade thoughts this week? What are you thinking at the moment? Who's out? Who's in?
So I'm worried about Ponga, Cheese, Stags, and Tanner. I think I can see Stags straight down to Hammer. And then I'm just going to have a play with the money. I am looking at maybe downgrading Ponga to either Schuster or Katoa, which I've mentioned that I recommend doing, which will free up some cash that will maybe get me Tanner Boyd with a real upgrade up there. If I can't find that money to upgrade, I will probably maybe slide across, I don't know, to somebody similar sort of money as Cheese and just float in there. What are you looking at doing?
I think I mentioned it, but I think Cheese and Toto are definitely out. Wade Egan and Carraz seem to be the options at the moment, and that doesn't really free up too much cash for me, but I think the third option might be Nofaluma down to Hammer. So I think if I'm definitely boosting this week, and I want to boost. I was very tempted to go a trade as a free up of cash this week, and that would have been Toto down to CNK. So I actually dodged a bullet there. But I think Toto, Cheese, and Nofaluma come out, and at the moment it's Egan, Carraz, and Hamiso come in. So that's me at the moment. We'll see how that goes through the week. I might change my mind 300 times like I normally do, but you never know. I'll obviously update everybody, as will you, on our Twitter. So we'll keep everybody up to date. If everybody follows us on Twitter, you can see that on YouTube underneath, or Twitch or Facebook or wherever you're watching us. And obviously our group code is dead set underneath. If you want to jump into the group code, you want to win a championship ring, you want to jump on the podcast and have a chat about how good you are and how you're better than us, you can definitely do that at the end of the season. So jump into that unlimited group while you can, because we'll be shutting off entry to that in the next 2 weeks. So be very quick. Mate, that's it. We've touched on round 2, guys. This is the biggest and the most important round of the year. I think round 3, getting your cheapies right, getting those downgrade or upgrade options right, coming into where our teams and our players change prices for the first time. So you've got to get that right. Hopefully you've taken in some of the stuff we're talking about, some of the mistakes we've made. Don't make those. But obviously, moving into Teamless Tuesday, we'll see you on Tuesday night, guys. And before we wrap up, thanks for the support. We really appreciate it. Everybody's been getting around us on YouTube, on Twitch, on Facebook, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, everywhere that you see this podcast. Everybody's been really supportive, dropping the likes, the subscribes, the comments. It's been fantastic, and we really appreciate it. Should keep that up, and obviously, the more subs we get, the more and the longer we can continue to do this. So let's keep that up. But otherwise, we will see you on Tuesday night to talk about all things team lists for round 3. Pretty big episode. We'll be usually going live between maybe 8:30 and 9:30, depending on timing when Matty's got balls. So stay tuned for that. We'll keep you up to date. But otherwise, guys, you've been listening to the Molten Fantasy Sports Podcast, and we will see you on Tuesday night. Catch you later.
Cheerio.